Nigerian Civil War. War between Nigeria's federal government and the secessionist state Biafra that lasted from 1967 to 1970. Nigeria became an independent country on October 1, 1960. Abubakar Tafawa Balewa was its first federal prime minister. He had held that position since 1957. And Nnamdi Azikiwe became its president of the Senate, which was a largely ceremonial role. Following a UN-supervised referendum in 1961, the northern part of the Trust Territory of the Cameroons joined Nigeria's northern region, while in October the southern Cameroons united with Cameroon to form the Federal Republic of Cameroon. On October 1, 1963, Nigeria became a republic, with Azikiwe as its president, although, as prime minister, Balewa remained more politically powerful in Nigeria and its surrounding region. Long-standing regional stresses, ethnic competitiveness, educational inequality, and economic imbalance being the most prominent, again came to the fore in a controversial census during 1962-63. In an attempt to stave off ethnic conflict, Nigeria's Midwest region was created in 1963 by dividing the Western region. Despite this division, the country still was segmented into three large geographic regions, each of which was essentially controlled by an ethnic group: the West by the Yoruba people, the East by the Igbo people, and the North by the Hausa Fulani people. Conflicts were endemic. As regional leaders protected their privileges, the South complained of Northern domination, and the North feared that the Southern elite was bent on capturing power. In the West, the government had fallen apart in 1962, and a boycott of the federal election of December 1964 brought Nigeria to the brink of breakdown. The point of no return was reached in January 1966, when, after the collapse of order in the West following the fraudulent election of October 1965, a group of army officers attempted to overthrow the federal government, and Balewa and two of the regional premiers were murdered. A military administration was set up under Maj. Gen. Johnson Aguiyi, but his plan to abolish the regions and impose a unitary government met with anti-Igbo riots in the north. The military intervention worsened the political situation. As the army itself split along ethnic lines, its officers clashed over power, and the instigators and leaders of the January coup were accused of favoring Igbo domination. In July 1966, northern officers staged a counter-coup. Aguiyi was assassinated, and Lut Cole, later Gen. Yakubu Gowon, came to power. The crisis was compounded by intercommunal clashes in the north and threats of secession in the south. Gowon's attempt to hold a conference to settle the constitutional future of Nigeria was abandoned after a series of ethnic massacres. In October 1966, a last-ditch effort to save the country was made in January 1967, when the Eastern delegation, led by Lut Cole, later Gen. Odumegwu Ojukwu, agreed to meet the others on neutral ground at Aburi, Ghana.
The situation deteriorated, however, after differences developed over the interpretation of the accord. In May, the Eastern Region's Consultative Assembly authorized Ojukwu to establish a sovereign republic, while, at the same time, the federal military government promulgated a decree dividing the four regions into 12 states, including 6 in the north and 3 in the east, in an attempt to break the power of the regions. On May 30, 1967, Ojukwu declared the secession of the 3 states of the eastern region under the name of the Republic of Biafra, which Nigeria's federal government interpreted as an act of rebellion. Fighting broke out in early July. Within weeks, the conflict had escalated into a full-scale civil war. In August 1967, Biafran troops crossed the Niger, Size Benin City, and were well on their way to Lagos before they were checked at Ore, a small town in western state now Ondo State. Shortly thereafter, federal troops entered Enugu, the provisional capital of Biafra, and penetrated the Igbo heartland. The next 2 years were marked by stiff resistance in the shrinking Biafran enclave and by heavy casualties among civilians as well as in both armies, all set within what threatened to be a military stalemate.
Peacemaking attempts by the Organization of African Unity, now the African Union, the Pope, and others were ineffective, and Biafra began gaining recognition from African states Côte d'Ivoire, Gabon, Tanzania, and Zambia. France provided weapons to Biafra, while the UK and the Soviet Union sent arms to the federal government. Biafra also received aid from international organizations for its population, which was suffering from starvation.